They say every bad decision starts small, so ordinary you hardly notice it happening. That night in the spring of 2017, my bad decision was nothing more than a craving for chips and a slushie. Nothing extraordinary, nothing reckless. Just a pregnant woman with a restless appetite. My Aunt Teresa always told me, "Hannah, cravings are cravings. Sometimes they're your body's way of telling you what the baby needs." By then, I was 8 months along, my belly stretched tight and heavy. I lived in Tucson, Arizona, in a modest 2-bedroom apartment off East Broadway Boulevard. The desert heat made nights thick and muggy, and my body felt like a furnace. Teresa, my mother's older sister, had taken me in after my messy breakup with David. He wasn't cruel, just careless. He promised me love but disappeared when life demanded more than words. By the time I told him about the pregnancy, he'd already packed his bags. I didn't fight him. I couldn't. Teresa had stepped up like she always did, cooking dinners, rubbing my back, driving me to doctor appointments. But that evening she had come down with a migraine. She'd curled up in her bedroom with an ice pack on her forehead and told me to stay in, lock the door, and rest. I tried. I really did. But the craving gnawed at me. Sour lime chips and cherry slushie, a combination so stubborn in my brain I couldn't ignore it. I argued with myself for 20 minutes. I told myself it was too late, the neighborhood wasn't safe after dark, and anyway, Teresa needed me nearby. But logic doesn't stand a chance against pregnancy cravings. Eventually, I slipped on my sandals, grabbed my purse, and told myself it was just 2 blocks. I'd walked it before. I'd be back in 10 minutes. The 7-Eleven sat like a bright box in the dark, buzzing under its neon lights. Inside, the air smelled like floor cleaner and hot dogs that had been spinning for hours. A couple of college kids were joking near the soda machine, filling big gulps, and the cashier looked bored behind the counter, scrolling his phone. The aisles were quiet, almost too quiet. I waddled over to the snack shelves, scanning for the green bag of lime-flavored chips. Of course, the only one left was sitting too high, just out of reach. I tried stretching my arms upward, rising on tiptoe, groaning as the weight of my belly pulled me back down. That's when I heard a soft, quivering voice beside me. "Here, dear. Let me help." I turned, startled. An older woman stood close, so close I could smell her faint perfume, the kind my grandmother used to wear. Her silver hair was pulled neatly into a bun, but her face was sunken, the skin thin and pale, her eyes a cloudy blue. With surprising agility, she reached up and plucked the chips off the shelf, handing them to me with a smile. "You shouldn't strain yourself," she said, her voice low and sweet. "It's not safe for the baby." I gave a nervous laugh. "Thank you. That's kind of you." She didn't step back. She just kept smiling, her head tilted slightly, eyes fixed on me. "Do you live around here? It's a busy street for someone in your condition." I hesitated. Something about her tone made me wary. I shrugged, tucking the chips into my basket. "Close enough." She nodded knowingly, almost too knowingly. "Your aunt takes care of you, doesn't she? Sweet Teresa. But she can't do it all." My chest tightened. She shouldn't have known Teresa's name. I forced a polite smile and murmured something about needing a drink, trying to move away, but I could hear her footsteps following as I walked toward the coolers. That was the moment the night began to unravel. The old woman stayed on my heels as I opened the cooler door and pulled out a cherry slushie cup. Her reflection hovered in the glass like a shadow. "You must be due soon," she said. 8 months, maybe? That's when the baby really needs care. Not everyone can give it." I gripped the cold cup so tightly my fingers ached. "I'm fine. We're fine." Her lips stretched into a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Do you have a crib yet? A safe nursery? A proper home?" She leaned closer. "I have a farmhouse out in the desert. Quiet. Peaceful. You could come stay with me. The baby would be safe." I barked a laugh too sharp. "Thanks, but I'm okay." "You're not okay," she whispered, her voice hardening. She reached out suddenly, her hand gripping my cart handle with surprising strength. "Come with me now. You and the baby deserve better." Her grip was icy, her knuckles white. I tugged the cart back, heart hammering in my chest. "Let go." For a long moment she didn't. Then she slowly released it, her hand trembling, her nails yellowed. She leaned in so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. "Life is fragile, dear. One wrong choice and your baby may never see tomorrow." Fear surged through me. I abandoned the drink and pushed my cart fast toward the register. The cashier barely looked up as he rang me out. I swiped my card with shaking hands, desperate to leave. The moment I stepped outside, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for hours. The night air was thick and humid, but it felt better than the chill she left in my bones. I told myself it was nothing, just a disturbed woman. Maybe lonely, maybe senile. I almost convinced myself of that. Almost. Until I felt the pressure in my bladder. Pregnancy didn't care about timing. The 7-Eleven restroom sat in a separate building by the parking lot, a dingy single-stall closet with a flickering light. I told myself it would be quick. I'd be in and out before anything could happen. Inside, I locked the door and lowered myself onto the toilet, pressing my hands to my belly, whispering to my son, "We're okay. We're fine." Then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, outside the door. I froze. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in around me. My throat tightened. Slowly, I looked up. A shadow shifted above me. The woman's face appeared over the stall partition, inches away, her cloudy eyes gleaming in the dim light. She didn't blink. She just smiled. "Come with me," she rasped. "The baby needs me more than you." I screamed, pure instinct. The sound echoed off the tiled walls, harsh and raw. She didn't flinch. Her bony hands gripped the partition like claws, knuckles white. "Stay away from me," I shouted, stumbling to my feet, fumbling with the stall door. My heart hammered so violently I thought it might burst. Her smile widened. "I want your baby," she shrieked, the sound rattling in her throat. I shoved the stall door open so hard it slammed against the wall. My sandals slapped against the filthy floor as I bolted out, nearly tripping on the threshold. Behind me, I heard the stall door bang open, her footsteps scraping fast. Keys, purse, car. My mind fired off the words like commands. I fumbled with my bag as I ran toward my old sedan parked under the buzzing streetlight. My swollen belly made me clumsy, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I could hear her shrill voice behind me, closer than I wanted to believe. "You can't keep him." I yanked the car door open, slammed it shut, and jammed the lockdown just as her hands hit the glass. Her face appeared in the window, twisted with rage, her teeth bared. She pounded the glass with surprising force, skeletal fists thudding again and again. "He's mine!" I screamed again, fumbling the key into the ignition. The engine coughed to life. I floored it, the tires squealing as I tore out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, I saw her shrinking figure, still pounding the air, still screaming. By the time I reached the apartment, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. Teresa was asleep in her room, her face pale in the glow of the bedside lamp. I sat on the couch in the dark, clutching my belly, rocking back and forth. I told myself it was over. She was just a crazy woman. But the next morning when I reported it to the police, they dismissed it with weary expressions. "Probably a transient. Tucson's full of them," the officer said, jotting notes half-heartedly. "Best to avoid that store at night." I wanted to scream at him. She knew my aunt's name. She knew things she shouldn't have known. But the words lodged in my throat. The officer shrugged, handed me a case number, and told me to call if she showed up again. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face peering over the stall, those cloudy eyes, that rasping whisper. "The baby needs me more than you." And deep down, I knew it wasn't over. For a week, I stayed inside. Teresa noticed my nerves, the way I jumped at every noise, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her everything. I didn't want to worry her more. Then one evening, While picking up groceries, I saw something that froze my blood. A flyer taped to the 7-Eleven door. A young woman had gone missing, last seen shopping there late at night. My stomach dropped. I asked the cashier about it. He shrugged. Yeah, cops were here earlier. Girl never made it home. Happens sometimes. I stared at the photo of the missing woman. She looked about my age. Dark hair, soft smile, a life interrupted. I imagined the old woman's skeletal hands gripping her arm, dragging her into the night. I couldn't shake it. At home, I clutched my belly and whispered to my unborn son, "I'll keep you safe, I promise." But the promise felt hollow. One night, a week before my due date, I woke to a sound at the window. A scrape, soft but deliberate. My heart raced. I crept to the curtain, pulled it back just an inch. There she was, standing under the streetlight, her silver hair gleaming, her cloudy eyes fixed on my window. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stood there, watching. I dropped the curtain, heart slamming against my ribs. Teresa rushed in, alarmed. I stammered out what I saw. By the time she looked, the street was empty. We called the police. They drove by, found nothing. Again, I was left with a useless case number. That night I slept in Teresa's room, clutching her hand like a child. The woman's words echoed in my skull. Life is fragile, dear. One wrong choice. I realized then that my cravings had almost cost me everything. My son was born 2 weeks later, screaming, healthy, perfect. When the nurse placed him in my arms, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. His tiny fingers curled around mine, anchoring me to the world. But even in the hospital, I couldn't shake the fear. I kept imagining her shadow slipping through the door, her voice whispering in the dark. Teresa told me to let it go, to focus on the baby. But trauma doesn't vanish because you want it to. I never saw the old woman again. Not in person anyway. But she stayed in my dreams. Some nights I woke to her voice hissing, "Your baby belongs with me." Other nights I dreamed of clawed hands breaking through the car window, pulling him away. Time passed. My son grew strong, wild, full of life. But every time I drove past that 7-Eleven, I felt a shiver down my spine. The missing girl's flyer had long since disappeared, but the fear never did. I learned something in those months. Safety isn't about locked doors or bright lights. It's about trusting your instincts. I had ignored mine that night, convincing myself a short walk was harmless. I had brushed off the alarms in my gut when that woman first smiled at me. I never ignored them again. Danger often wears a friendly face, and survival depends on listening to the quiet warnings inside us. Life is fragile, and one careless choice can unravel everything. But by learning to trust ourselves, to draw boundaries and protect what matters, we find strength even in fear. I used to think night drives were peaceful. Windows down, music humming low, the highway stretched out like a ribbon just for me. But the summer of 2021 changed that forever. That's when I learned how quickly peace can twist into terror. My name's Lauren Pierce. Back then I was 20, a junior at Temple University, scraping by with cafe shifts and financial aid. I'd driven out to Lancaster that weekend to see my grandparents, salt-of-the-earth people, the kind who stock the fridge with leftovers and press gas money into your palm when you leave. I stayed later than I should have, because it's hard to say goodbye when you don't visit enough. But I had a morning shift the next day and couldn't afford to miss it. So close to midnight, I got on the road with my golden retriever Milo riding shotgun, his nose pressed to the cracked window. I wasn't used to long solo drives, especially after dark. My Corolla rattled like it was held together with tape, and the fuel light had been on for 10 nervous minutes before I finally saw the glow of a gas station. A 7-Eleven sat at the corner of a small intersection, its neon sign buzzing faintly, the parking lot mostly empty except for a dented sedan. Thank God. I muttered, pulling in. Milo gave a little whine like he agreed. Inside, the store was stale and quiet. It smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning supplies. A young clerk with messy hair was stocking shelves in the back, not even glancing at me. I grabbed a Gatorade, paid for gas, and headed back outside. The night air felt thicker somehow. That's when Milo stiffened. He started to growl low in his throat, ears pinned forward, staring at the far corner of the lot. I followed his gaze. A shed sat there, small, windowless, paint peeling. A heavy padlock clamped the door shut. It looked abandoned, like it didn't belong. I tried to shake it off. Dogs bark at shadows, right? I swiped my card, started fueling, telling myself to stay calm. But before the tank was half full, headlights flared across the lot. Then another, then another. 3 black SUVs rolled in, followed by a white van. They pulled up in a neat half circle near the shed, engines humming. My mouth went dry. Milo's growl turned into sharp, warning barks. The doors opened. 6, maybe 7 men climbed out. Hoodies pulled low, one of them gripping a bat. Another had slicked back hair and a smile that made my stomach clench. He wasn't looking at the shed. He was looking at me. I froze with the gas nozzle in my hand, my pulse slamming in my ears. Milo barked, lunging toward the window, teeth bared. The men didn't move toward the store. They moved toward the shed. All except the slick-haired one, who stayed in place, staring like he'd been expecting me. I whispered to myself, "Stay calm, Lore. Just finish fueling." But my hands were shaking so badly I spilled gas on my sneakers, and when he took a step forward, tilting his head with that smile, I knew I wasn't safe. I yanked the nozzle free, shoved it back into the pump, and nearly tripped getting into my car. Milo barked furiously, pressing against the window. I locked the doors fast, my hands trembling. The slick-haired man kept his eyes on me, his grin widening. He tapped something against his thigh, hidden inside his hoodie. The shape looked too familiar. A gun. "Please start," I whispered, fumbling with the keys. The Corolla coughed once, twice before roaring to life. My chest unclenched just enough for me to breathe. That's when I saw the van door slide open. Another man stepped out, dragging a long duffel bag. He dropped it on the ground, unzipped it. Even from the road, I could see the metallic glint of something inside. Tools, weapons, chains. My stomach lurched. I didn't wait to find out. Tires screeched as I pulled away from the pump, out onto the empty road. My hands cramped from gripping the wheel. Milo whined, pacing in the passenger seat before finally collapsing against me. For 30 minutes I drove without stopping, heart hammering, scanning the rearview mirror. No headlights behind me, no pursuit. But the image burned in my mind. The shed, the circle of SUVs, the bag on the ground. At the next rest stop, a big one off the interstate, I pulled in under bright lights and finally let myself breathe. My hands shook so hard I dropped my phone twice trying to call someone. But who would I even call? The police? What would I tell them? That I saw men hanging out by a shed? That I thought one had a gun? I stumbled out of the car and vomited into a trash can. Milo stayed close, nudging my leg like he knew I was breaking apart. Back in the car, I pulled up my Maps app and deleted the 7-Eleven's address from my history. Like erasing, it could erase the night. I told myself it was just a meeting, some gang thing, nothing to do with me. I told myself to forget. But I couldn't. The weeks that followed were a blur of school and work. I poured coffee, wiped tables, forced smiles. But in quiet moments, the memory slammed back. That grin, that duffel bag, Milo's growls echoing in my ears. I didn't tell anyone. Not my roommates, not my parents, not even my best friend. Saying it out loud would make it real, and I wanted it buried. But my habits changed. I started carrying pepper spray. I bought a flashlight, a small one that fit in my purse. I even ordered a satellite phone online because I didn't trust cell towers in back roads anymore. One night after my cafe shift, I was scrolling through the news on my phone when a headline stopped me cold. Human remains found beneath abandoned shed, behind 7-Eleven in Idle Creek. The photo showed the same store, the same cracked lot, the same shed. The article was thin on details, but enough. Bones had been uncovered after a tip led police to dig beneath the shed's foundation. Authorities suspected foul play. Investigators called it disturbing. I dropped my phone on the couch and covered my mouth with both hands. My stomach twisted so violently I thought I'd be sick again. The shed, the men, that bag. Milo, curled on the floor, lifted his head like he could feel my fear. I pulled him into my lap and whispered, "We could have been next." They saw us. He saw me. My heart wouldn't slow down. Every sound outside my apartment window made me jump. I knew then that what I'd stumbled on wasn't just some shady meetup. It was something much darker. The nightmares started soon after. I'd dream of the shed door creaking open, of men stepping out of the van with that bag, of Milo barking until silence fell. In one dream I tried to run, but my feet stuck to the pavement while the slick-haired man smiled at me from the shadows. I woke drenched in sweat, my chest aching like I'd been holding my breath. Even awake, I couldn't escape it. Driving late at night became impossible. Every gas station looked sinister. Every car that followed too long in my rear view made me think of black SUVs. One afternoon, my roommate found me sitting on the kitchen floor, Milo pressed to my chest, staring blankly at the wall. She asked what was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How do you tell someone you might have witnessed something tied to murder? How do you say you locked eyes with a man who could have ended your life without blinking? I started keeping journals, writing every detail I remembered, down to the way the neon sign buzzed, the smell of burnt coffee, the slick-haired man's smirk. It felt like the only way to get it out of my head, though it never really worked. One night I finally drove by a police station. I sat in the lot for 20 minutes rehearsing what I'd say, but the fear stopped me. If those men had been killing and burying people out there, who was to say they didn't have eyes everywhere? Reporting them felt like painting a target on my back. So I drove away. Time dulled the sharp edges of that night, but it never erased them. The 7-Eleven faded into the background of news cycles, replaced by other tragedies. Classes picked up, shifts piled on, and I found ways to function. But I was never the same. I learned to live with a constant alertness. I mapped every route before driving. I carried more than pepper spray. I carried caution. When friends joked about late-night pit stops or pulling off into strange towns, I bit my tongue until it hurt. Sometimes I wondered about the missing lives beneath that shed, who they were, who missed them, and whether the men I saw had been caught, or if they were still out there, circling some other forgotten highway town. Milo's muzzle has gone a little gray since then. He still rides shotgun, his presence steady, his growl deep when something feels off. Maybe he saved me that night more than I'll ever know. I still drive through Lancaster to see my grandparents, but I take different roads now, no matter how much longer it takes. And when I see a lonely 7-Eleven glowing on a dark corner, I keep driving. Because I've learned the hard way. Some places aren't just gas and coffee. Some places hide things you're never meant to see. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind ordinary places, waiting for chance encounters. Trusting your instincts isn't paranoia, it's survival. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And it's better to drive an extra mile in fear than to stop and never make it home. People talk about safe places like they actually exist. For me, that place was a 7-Eleven on East Johnson Street in Madison, Wisconsin. It sounds ridiculous, but when you're 22, stretched thin between nursing school and 12-hour clinical shifts, you cling to little rituals. Mine was walking into that brightly lit store at odd hours, grabbing an energy drink or a bag of pretzels, and just standing there in the hum of fluorescent lights, pretending I wasn't so alone. I was exhausted all the time. My apartment was a shoebox with paper-thin walls, and my roommates were either partying or asleep. The hospital swallowed my days, lectures chewed up my evenings, and when I finally stumbled home, There was nothing left of me but bones and caffeine jitters. I didn't tell anyone how often I wandered down to that store. It felt private, a bubble of light where no one expected anything from me. It was October, the kind of month when the air sharpens and your breath hangs like smoke. That afternoon, I ducked into the 7-Eleven after class to grab coffee and some cold medicine. I had been fighting off a scratchy throat, and the automatic doors gave me the faintest sense of relief as they whooshed shut behind me. That's when I noticed him. He stood in the medicine aisle, tall but thin, pale under the buzzing lights. His hoodie was black, pulled low, his posture stiff like he was waiting for something. His eyes followed me, hollow and unblinking. I tried to ignore it, reaching for a bottle of cough syrup. "You look tired," he said, voice flat. I startled, then gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, long week." I turned to go, but he followed. "What's your name?" His steps closed the space too quickly. "Claire," I muttered, not wanting to sound rude. His lips curled in a strange smile. "Claire? That's pretty. You should give me your number, I can help you feel better." Something inside me nodded. Fear mixed with politeness, that old trap women know too well. My hands shook. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want him angry. So I scribbled my real number on the back of a receipt and handed it over. He slid it into his pocket, eyes gleaming like I'd given him a gift. I rushed through checkout, clutching the medicine like a lifeline, and practically ran home. I told myself he was just lonely, maybe awkward, that's all. But when my phone buzzed later that night with an unknown number saying, "I'm outside," my heart stopped cold. I pulled back the blinds with trembling fingers. Under the streetlight, a beat-up sedan idled. A figure leaned against it, smoking. Hoodie pulled up, his face tipped toward my building. I dropped the blinds so fast they rattled. My chest squeezed. Seconds crawled by, the phone buzzing again. "Don't be scared, Claire, come down." I turned off every light and sat on the floor, knees pressed to my chest, phone clutched tight. He didn't leave for hours. I lay awake listening to the low rumble of his engine. The messages didn't stop. At first it was harmless, or at least he wanted it to sound that way. "Saw you at the hospital. You smiled at me. You want me too." Then, "Don't ignore me. I know where you live." I deleted them, blocked the number, but new ones always came. New numbers. Same words. The same creeping sense that he was always close. I started spotting him everywhere. At the 7-Eleven, parked at the far end of the lot. In the library, sitting quietly in a corner, eyes never leaving me. Once I thought I saw him outside the hospital parking structure, leaning against his car like he'd been waiting. My family told me to call the police. My mom's voice cracked on the phone. "Claire, this isn't normal, he's dangerous." But I felt ashamed. Like somehow I'd invited it by giving him my number. Like this was my fault. And calling the police would only make me look stupid. So I said nothing. Instead, I stopped walking anywhere alone. I changed my routes home, pretended I didn't see him when I did. Fear became routine, like brushing my teeth or packing my bag. Every day, I waited for him to appear, and he always did. By late October, the weather turned sharp and wet. Leaves plastered the sidewalks in slick patterns. My nerves were frayed raw from lack of sleep. Every buzz of my phone sent me jumping. One night I walked into the 7-Eleven for milk. The bell above the door jingled and I exhaled, relieved to see the familiar cashier behind the counter. But then I spotted it. His car, parked crookedly under the buzzing streetlight, like a shadow waiting. The clerk leaned closer as I approached. His voice dropped to a whisper. "That guy's been hanging around all night." My stomach flipped. I set the milk down, fumbling for cash, when the door chimed again. The man walked in. Hood pulled up, his hand stuffed deep into the front pocket of his sweatshirt. His eyes searched only for me. My throat went dry. I tried to breathe, but the air felt like glass. He walked straight toward me, his voice low and rasping. "You shouldn't have ignored me, Claire. the outline of something hard pressed against the fabric at his waist. My mind screamed one word: gun. I backed away, whispering to the cashier, "Please, call the police, now." The store froze around me. The man stepped closer, his hand brushing the handle hidden in his waistband. His eyes were feverish, pupils wide. "You don't get it," he said. "We're meant to be. You and me. I see you everywhere, you see me too. Don't lie." My voice cracked. "Please, stop." The cashier's trembling fingers slipped under the counter, pressing the silent alarm. I prayed it worked. The man leaned in, his breath sour. "You belong to me. Don't make me prove it." I wanted to run, but my legs refused. Seconds stretched like hours. Then, faint but real, sirens wailed in the distance. His head snapped toward the sound. His grip twitched toward the gun. For one terrifying heartbeat, I thought it was over. The front doors crashed open. Officers stormed in, shouting commands. The man spun, but they were on him in an instant, pinning him to the ground, wrenching the weapon away. His scream was high, desperate, like a child's. I collapsed against the counter, sobbing so hard my ribs ached. The cashier's pale face blurred in my vision. Someone's hand pressed to my shoulder, steady but distant. The world tilted and narrowed. All I knew was that I was still breathing, and that for the first time in weeks he wasn't watching me. The days after blurred into interviews, statements, questions I could barely answer. The police told me he'd been carrying a loaded handgun. They said the messages on my phone would serve as evidence. They assured me I was safe now, but safe didn't feel real anymore. I stopped going to that 7-Eleven. Just walking past the corner made my chest tighten. The aisles that once comforted me now belonged to him, his shadow, his voice. Even years later, I couldn't set foot inside a gas station without scanning every corner, checking every car in the lot. I graduated, became a nurse, built a life beyond that season of fear. But it stayed with me, the way danger slid into my world disguised as a stranger with a smile, the way I doubted myself instead of listening to my instincts. Sometimes at night, I still wake thinking I hear the buzz of a phone with an unknown number. My hand shakes until I remind myself, he's gone. But the memory never leaves. Because once you learn how easily your sanctuary can shatter, you never look at safe places the same again. Kindness should never come at the expense of safety. Too often we dismiss our instincts to avoid offending someone, but predators rely on that hesitation. Trust the knot in your stomach. Trust the growl in your chest. Your life is worth more than politeness. When I think back to the summer of 2009, the first thing I remember is the heat. Clearwater in July didn't just get hot. It pressed down on you, sticky and relentless, like the air itself wanted to smother you. I was 13 that year, stuck between being too young to be free and too old to hide in childhood. My parents fought constantly in our little house on Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Slamming doors, sharp voices, cold silences. Home didn't feel safe, but there was one place that did. The 7-Eleven 3 blocks down. It wasn't much. Fluorescent lights, humming refrigerators, the endless smell of coffee and hot dogs. But to me, it was a refuge. I went there for the simplest things. A Slurpee, a candy bar, or more often than not, sketch pads and pencils. Drawing was my escape. Every babysitting dollar I earned went into art supplies. At home, when voices rose, I'd retreat to my room, pencils scratching across paper, creating worlds where no one yelled and no one left. That afternoon in late July, I jingled a pocket full of coins as I walked barefoot in sandals toward the store. The sun baked the pavement, and sweat trickled down my back. My plan was simple. Buy a new pack of colored pencils, maybe a small Slurpee, then head back before dinner. When the bell above the door jingled, it felt like it always did. Familiar, safe. But I noticed him right away. Standing near the Slurpee machine was a tall man dressed head to toe like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. He had the tricorn hat, the wig with fake beads, eyeliner smudged thick around his eyes. At first I thought maybe it was some goofy promotion, maybe even funny. But then I caught the smell. Sharp, sour, unmistakable alcohol. His eyes were bloodshot, his pupils blown wide, and his sway wasn't playful, it was dangerous. I tried to slip past him to the aisle with the sketch pads. My heart thumped harder with each step. I crouched low, reaching for a pad on the bottom shelf. That's when his shadow fell over me. "Ahoy, little lass," he slurred. His voice was high and sing-songy, but there was an edge that made my stomach twist. "What's your name?" I kept my eyes down, mumbling, "Just getting something." But he stumbled closer, his breath sour, words tumbling in a mix of fake pirate and drunk menace. "You don't laugh at Captain Jack, do ye? Think I'm funny, don't you dare mock me." The friendliness dropped like a mask, replaced by sharpness. I froze, my hand clutching the sketch pad so hard the cardboard bent. I walked fast to the counter, slammed down my coins and left before the cashier even noticed me. I thought once I got outside, I'd be safe. But I was wrong. The first thing I saw was the bike rack. My bicycle, my only way home, was gone. The lock chain hung loose, snapped like it was nothing. Then I heard it, the metallic ring of my bike bell. My head whipped around and my stomach dropped. Across the parking lot, the Jack Sparrow man wobbled on my bike, pedaling in uneven circles, his face split into a manic grin. "You're mine now, lass," he shouted, his voice echoing across the lot. "The sea be callin'." He rang the bell over and over, the sound high-pitched and cruel. My heart raced as I clutched the sketchpad to my chest. "That's my bike," I shouted, my voice cracking. He swerved toward me, wobbling dangerously, and shrieked, "A captain needs a mate. You'll do just fine." For a split second, I couldn't move. The parking lot spun with heat and noise. Then instinct kicked in. I ran, my sandals slapped against the asphalt, my chest burning, my vision blurring with tears. Behind me, the bike bell clanged like a twisted game of tag. He screamed curses, his voice bouncing between pirate nonsense and something darker, less human. I didn't know where I was running, just away. My legs ached, lungs screamed, but I kept moving. Then, out of nowhere, headlights swept across the lot. A pickup truck screeched to a stop just feet from me. I threw my arms up, screaming. The man tried to turn sharply, but his drunken balance gave out. My bike twisted under him, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. He let out a shriek, half pain, half rage. The driver, a middle-aged man with wide eyes, jumped out, phone in hand. "You okay, kid?" I could barely speak. He took my bike. He's crazy." The man on the ground staggered to his feet, hat slipping sideways, eyeliner streaking with sweat. He spat curses, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You'll regret this, lass. Mark my words." Then he bolted behind the store, disappearing into the strip of trees beyond. I collapsed beside the truck, gasping, clutching my sketch pad like it was a shield. My bike lay twisted in the lot, frame bent, chain dangling uselessly. Its bell gave one last faint ring in the humid air. The driver called the police, his hand steady, even as mine shook uncontrollably. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars arrived, lights flashing red and blue against the store's neon glow. Officers searched the wooded strip behind the store, but he was gone. They took my statement, asked for descriptions. Tall, white male, dressed as Jack Sparrow, heavily intoxicated, I repeated like a broken record. It sounded absurd even as I said it. A drunk pirate stole my bike and chased me across a 7-Eleven lot. But the officers didn't laugh. One of them, a woman with her hair tied back, knelt so her eyes met mine. "You did the right thing running, sweetheart. You kept yourself safe." Safe. The word felt fragile in my mouth. My parents showed up later, furious with themselves for letting me walk to the store alone. But at 13, I had begged them for freedom, convinced I could handle myself. That night, I saw the cracks in that illusion. I didn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him riding toward me, grinning, eyes wide, ringing that bell. In the silence of my room, I swore I could hear it still. Tinny, mocking. Weeks passed, but the fear lingered. I refused to walk to the 7-Eleven alone again. If I needed sketch pads or pencils, my mom drove me. I hated it. I hated feeling like a child, like freedom had been snatched away. But at night, when the house filled with my parents arguing, I realized something. Freedom meant nothing if I wasn't safe. The police never found him. The official report called it an isolated incident. To everyone else, it faded like a strange summer story. To me, it lived on. Even at school, I found myself jumping at sudden noises. When kids laughed about Halloween costumes, I felt sick. Jack Sparrow jokes made my skin crawl. Pirates weren't funny anymore. My bike sat mangled in the garage, a silent reminder. I couldn't bring myself to ride again. Years have passed since that summer. I'm an adult now, and Clearwater feels far away. But sometimes when I pass a 7-Eleven or hear the faint ding of a bike bell, the memory returns sharp and raw. That man in costume, drunk, unstable, dangerous, changed something in me. He shattered the illusion that familiar places are automatically safe. He taught me how quickly ordinary moments can turn into nightmares. But he also taught me something else, something I carry with me still. My instincts matter. That knot in my stomach when I first saw him, that was my body warning me. And next time, I won't ignore it. I don't hate 7-Elevens. I don't even hate sketch pads or colored pencils. I still draw, and in some strange way, art is the reason I was there, the reason I survived. What I do hate is how close I came to being another missing flyer on a store window. You don't owe strangers politeness when your safety is on the line. Trust yourself even if you feel silly, because one moment of instinct can be the difference between walking home or never going home again. Back in the fall of 2012, I was 27 and broke in a way that chews on your bones. I had dropped out of community college after wasting years chasing a degree I couldn't afford. Credit card bills stacked on the counter, the bank kept calling about my overdue car loan, and the only steady paycheck I could find was guarding a 7-Eleven at night in Ashford Ridge, Virginia. I didn't like nights. The quiet turned heavy, and my imagination never let me rest. But I told myself it was better than nothing. Just a few months, I thought, enough to pay off some bills. The store was undergoing renovation, which made it worse. Half the ceiling tiles were cracked, some of the lights flickered endlessly, and there was an entire back storage wing sealed off with plaster dust and plastic sheeting. Customers never saw that part, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. They paired me with Tasha Williams, an ex-military single mom who carried herself like no one in the world scared her. She cracked jokes every night trying to make me laugh. Girl, the scariest thing you'll see here is an expired hot dog rolling on the grill. But once 1 a.m. hit, traffic disappeared and the store felt like a hollow shell. The coolers hummed like whispers. The empty aisles echoed with the sound of my own shoes. I tried to drown it out by focusing on the monitors at the security desk, but that didn't help. Every creak in the building made me think something was moving where it shouldn't. By the end of my first week, I started hearing things. Dragging footsteps in the closed-off renovation wing, humming noises on the stairwell camera feed, which always showed nothing but shadows. I told myself it was just pipes, or air ducts, or construction debris shifting. But one night, I muttered to Tasha, "Doesn't it sound like someone's walking upstairs?" She didn't even look up from her coffee. "Ain't no upstairs open, it's sealed off, forget it." I tried. I really did. But forgetting got harder with every shift. October 9th, just past 3 in the morning, the air felt heavier than usual. I sat at the monitor fighting sleep when something flickered on the stairwell feed. At first it looked like static. Then I realized it was a man's silhouette. He wasn't moving, just standing there staring straight into the camera. I leaned forward, my breath catching. His face was blurred in the grainy picture, but I swore his head tilted slightly, like he knew I was watching him. "Tasha," I whispered. She grunted, half asleep at her post. Look. By the time she got up, the screen had gone black. Just static. What the hell are you talking about? She asked. I pointed at the blank feed, words stumbling out of my mouth. There was someone there, right there. He was looking into the camera. She sighed. System glitches all the time. Don't let your head play tricks. But I couldn't shake it. The way he'd been standing there, so still, so deliberate. 2 nights later, I was restocking shelves when I heard it again. Footsteps. Clear, heavy, right behind me. I spun around just in time to see the sealed door to the storage wing slowly closing, like someone had just slipped inside. That door's supposed to be locked, I muttered. Tasha marched over and yanked it open. Nothing but darkness, plaster dust swirling in the flashlight beam. See? Empty. But it didn't feel empty. It felt like someone was holding their breath just out of sight. By the time Halloween weekend rolled around, my nerves were stretched thin. Every night I came in with a knot in my stomach, like I was walking into something waiting for me. That Saturday, just after 2:30, it finally broke. Tasha and I were walking the back hallway when a sharp sound ripped through the air, yelling, angry, guttural, echoing off the walls. I froze in place, my heart hammering. Then something whizzed past my head. It slammed into the drywall with a dull thud. A dart. I stared at it in shock. The feather. What the hell? Tasha shouted, pulling her flashlight. Who's back there? I dropped my radio, my hands shaking so badly I could barely pick it up. The air around us felt alive, humming with danger. We backed toward the front, but the yelling grew louder. I swore I could hear someone laughing. Tasha shoved me behind the counter and grabbed the phone. Police. Now. The minutes waiting felt like hours. My mind played out every possible scenario. What if he came charging in? What if he had more than darts? The police showed up in under 20 minutes, but it felt like forever. They searched the renovation wing, pried open sealed doors, and pulled down sections of the temporary drywall. What they found made me sick. Behind one wall was a small construction unit, a hidden space no one had thought to check. Inside was a filthy sleeping bag, piles of food wrappers, knives, and a modified tranquilizer gun. He'd been living there for weeks. One officer explained it like he was describing the weather. Looks like he's been watching you both from the cameras. Probably came and went during the day when the crews were here. Been planning something. Planning something. The words rang in my ears. They found him crouched under a stairwell, eyes wild, muttering about keeping us quiet. He didn't resist. He just stared at me as they pulled him out, like I was the only person in the room. That stare burned into me deeper than anything else. I quit the next morning. Didn't even make it to the end of the week. I sat in my car outside the store, gripping the steering wheel, sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. Tasha tried to act tough. It's just one crazy guy, don't let him own your head. But even she never went back after that night. For weeks I jumped at every creak in my apartment. For months, I dreamed about that silhouette on the stairwell camera. And even years later, whenever I passed a 7-Eleven, I felt phantom footsteps behind me. That job was supposed to be temporary, just a paycheck to keep me afloat. Instead, it left me with a memory that refuses to fade. Sometimes the danger isn't in the shadows we invent. It's in the people already hiding there. Trust your instincts. Fear might feel irrational, but sometimes it's the only thing standing between you and the truth. I never really planned on staying in Silverwood. It was one of those quiet Oregon towns that looked nice in postcards. Tall pines surrounding sleepy neighborhoods, a couple of churches, a diner that doubled as a gossip hub, and a 7-Eleven that practically kept half the town running. But life had other plans. My parents moved 2 hours away after my dad got a new job, and I stayed behind because I thought I could handle being independent. At 22, juggling community college classes and bills, I told myself that working nights at the 7-Eleven wasn't just a paycheck. It was a sign I was capable of standing on my own. Truth was, it was lonely. I rented a small apartment above a laundromat, where the hum of machines never really stopped. My closest friend, Marissa, lived about 15 minutes away, and most nights we only exchanged texts because she worked early mornings. That left me a stack of textbooks and my part-time job, where I spent most evenings surrounded by buzzing refrigerators and the endless flicker of fluorescent lights. On the good days, regulars stopped in to chat. On the bad days, I'd go whole hours without a single person walking through the door. I liked the routine, though. I'd come in around 6, stock the coolers, ring up smokes and coffee, maybe listen to some guy complain about lottery tickets. By the time I closed at 10, I'd feel both exhausted and relieved. It gave me structure in a town that sometimes felt like quicksand. That Friday night in late October started out like any other. Rain had been falling since morning, steady enough that most people stayed indoors. The roads glistened under streetlights, and the parking lot in front of the store was nearly empty, except for 2 regulars who bought gas and hurried off. I remember setting my cup of cheap coffee on the counter, flipping through one of my sociology readings and thinking the night would crawl by like usual. Then, just past 9, the door chimed. A man walked in, and everything about him felt out of place. He wore a long blue raincoat, hood pulled low, a baseball cap tucked underneath. Water dripped onto the tile as he moved, but what unsettled me wasn't the wet clothes. It was the silence. Most customers at least muttered hello. He said nothing. His shoes squeaked as he wandered the aisles, hands shoved deep into his pockets, eyes lifting every so often to land on me before moving away. "Evening, sir," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Let me know if you need anything." No response. Just a pause, then slow footsteps carrying him farther down the chips aisle. I tried to keep busy, rearranging gum at the counter, but my skin prickled every time he looked my way. For 10 long minutes, he touched nothing. Didn't pick up a soda, didn't grab smokes, didn't even pretend to browse. Finally, he headed toward the door, pushed it open, and slipped back into the rain without a word. Relief left me shaky. I muttered under my breath, "Weird, but fine. At least he's gone." The store felt normal again, humming and buzzing like always. But I couldn't shake the knot in my stomach. I tried to talk myself out of it. People are weird. Maybe he was just killing time or waiting for someone. That's what I told myself while restocking the donut shelf. But when the headlights swept across the glass doors at 9:45, I froze. Through the rain, I could make out the same blue sedan, crooked across 2 parking spaces. My breath caught. He hadn't just left. He'd come back. This time he didn't get out. The car idled, exhaust drifting white into the night air. He'd parked so close to my little hatchback that I knew I wouldn't be able to leave without walking right past him. His silhouette sat behind the foggy windshield, still, almost like he was waiting for a signal. I ducked behind the counter, peeking through a gap in the candy display. My hands shook as I grabbed the store phone and dialed my manager. Straight to voicemail. I whispered into the empty store, "It's fine. Just wait it out. Maybe he'll leave." But he didn't. Minutes crawled by. The sedan stayed, headlights off now, engine still humming. Every so often, I thought I saw his head turn, maybe glancing toward the store, maybe toward my car. At 10 closing time, I locked the doors earlier than usual, twisting the bolt with trembling hands. The idea of walking into that parking lot alone made my stomach lurch. I tried calling the non-emergency police line, but the rain must have been messing with reception because the call dropped twice before I could even explain. My chest tightened. I crouched behind the counter, heart thudding so loud I swore it echoed off the glass doors. 10:15. Still there. His engine purred, steady, patient. I texted Marissa. "There's a man outside my shift. Won't leave. He's parked by my car. Please come." Then I pressed my forehead against my knees and prayed the screen light wouldn't give me away. By 10:25, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for an hour. Every sound outside, the rain hitting the roof, a truck splashing past on the highway, made me flinch. I whispered, "Don't panic, don't panic." like saying it would make it true. When Marissa's SUV finally pulled into the lot at 10:30, her headlights cut through the rain like a rescue signal. That's when the sedan shifted gear. Smooth, fast. It backed out and rolled away without hesitation, taillights vanishing down the street. My knees almost gave out from relief. I bolted from behind the counter, fumbling with my keys to unlock the front. The rain slapped me in the face as I sprinted to Marissa's car. She leaned across the seat yelling, "Hannah, what the hell is going on?" I slammed the door behind me, chest heaving. There was a guy. He came in earlier, didn't say a word, just stared at me. Then he parked by my car and wouldn't leave. My voice cracked, the words tumbling out faster than I could control. I thought he was waiting for me. I thought... Marissa put a hand on my arm. Hey, you're safe now. Just breathe, okay?" I nodded, tears mixing with rain on my cheeks. We sat there until my heartbeat slowed enough to think straight. "I'm not leaving my car here alone," I whispered. "Not tonight. I'll get it in the morning." "Damn right you won't," Marissa said, starting her SUV. "You're staying at my place tonight." The drive through Silverwood's rain-slick streets felt unreal, like we were being followed even though no headlights trailed us. Marissa tried to lighten the mood. "Guess you finally have an excuse to skip your homework." But I couldn't shake the image of that sedan waiting like a predator outside my store. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every sound outside her apartment window made me bolt upright, half convinced he'd followed us. The next morning, I returned to the store with my manager, Paul. He was a practical guy in his 50s who believed half of life's problems could be solved with duct tape and common sense. When I explained everything, he frowned but tried to sound reassuring. Probably just some creep messing around. Silverwood's full of weirdos. We pulled into the lot at 8 a.m. The sedan was gone, of course, but something else caught my eye. Muddy footprints near the back door of the store, big ones leading up to the service entrance and back again. My throat tightened. "Those yours?" Paul asked. I shook my head. "No, I never go out back." He crouched, examining them. Could be kids, could be anything. But we both knew it wasn't. The prints were fresh, clear, and too large to be mine. My stomach knotted again. Whoever he was, he hadn't just sat in his car. He'd circled the store, checking exits. Paul called the local cops, who took a quick report but didn't seem too concerned. "Without a plate number or a clear description, there's not much we can do," one officer said, scribbling notes. "Blue sedan," I repeated, voice tight. "Blue raincoat, baseball cap." The officer nodded sympathetically. "We'll keep an eye out." That was it. No follow-up, no patrol car stationed nearby. Just keep an eye out. By the time I left with Marissa later that day, I'd already decided. I was done. I gave Paul my 2 weeks' notice. He tried to talk me out of it. Don't let some weirdo scare you off a steady paycheck. But the decision was final. No job was worth that kind of fear. I lasted only 1 more week before quitting outright. Every night the rain seemed louder, the shadows darker. Even when the sedan never returned, the possibility was enough to keep my pulse racing. Customers' faces blurred into one another, and I caught myself flinching at the bell over the door. The night I walked out for the last time, rain tapped against the glass like a reminder. I shut the register, locked the doors, and whispered a quiet goodbye to the buzzing lights. Marissa picked me up, like she had that first night, and I let myself exhale for the first time in days. Life moved on. I finished community college, moved to Portland, got a job that didn't keep me alone in a store after dark. But even years later, when rain streaked across my windshield, my pulse quickened. I'd see flashes of a blue raincoat in my memory, a sedan idling just out of reach, and the knowledge that not every customer walks in for snacks. Some just wait, watching. Never ignore your instincts. The unease in your gut is often the first alarm when something isn't right. Trust it. Fear can keep you alive, and it's better to overreact and be safe than to stay quiet and risk becoming someone's victim. Evil doesn't always announce itself. It hides in plain sight, under raincoats and baseball caps, waiting for you to doubt yourself. Arizona summers have a way of making you feel like you're living in an oven. The heat doesn't just surround you, it crawls into your lungs, wraps around your skin, and sits heavy on your shoulders until you're too tired to argue with it anymore. That June of 2018 was no different. Every day felt the same. Wake up, rush to drop Liam at his summer camp, drive to my job at the dental office for half a day, then juggle errands before the sun fell and the asphalt cooled enough to breathe again. I wasn't planning on going to 7-Eleven that afternoon. Honestly, I hated running errands in the middle of the day when the temperature pushed past 100, but Liam had been begging me all week. He's 9, stubborn in a way I like to pretend he got from his dad, though truthfully it's all me. He wanted a slushie, bright red cherry with enough sugar to fuel him for days. I kept saying, maybe later, maybe this weekend. But by Friday, the whining had turned into bargaining. Mom, please, just this once, I'll even do the dishes. So there we were, pulling into the 7-Eleven off East Broadway, my car's AC blasting but still unable to keep us from sweating. I told myself it would be a quick stop. Bottled water for me, sunscreen because I'd run out, snacks for him, and his coveted slushie. I even promised myself a guilty pleasure, maybe a pack of sour gummies if the line wasn't long. Inside, the air conditioning hit us like a blessing. The familiar buzz of refrigerators, the soft humming of soda machines, and the faint static from an old radio behind the counter gave the place its usual background noise. A delivery guy wheeled crates of soda toward the back, nodding as we passed. For a moment, everything felt perfectly normal, exactly like the 100 other times we'd come here. Liam darted ahead, sneakers squeaking on the tile, straight for the toy rack by the slushie machine. I let him go, rolling my eyes with a smile. I lingered by the school supply aisle, flipping through cheap notebooks, mentally calculating which one might survive Liam's habit of doodling in the margins. That's when I noticed him. A man. Mid-40s maybe. Baseball cap pulled low, skin weathered from the sun. No basket, no cart. He wasn't holding anything. He was just standing at the end of the aisle, not looking at notebooks, not looking at snacks, looking at my son. My throat went dry. I forced my feet to move quickly, closing the space between Liam and me. "Hey, bud," I said, voice too bright, too sharp. "Stay by me, okay?" He glanced up, confused. "I'm just looking." I said, "Stay close." My fingers curled gently but firmly around his shoulder. When I glanced back, the man had turned away, suddenly busy examining gum near the register like he hadn't just been staring. My stomach tightened. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe he was just zoning out. But my gut, the instinct that had kept me alive through divorce, financial strain, and years of being a single mom, told me this wasn't nothing. I told myself to breathe. Just buy the water, buy the snacks, get the slushie, and leave. But no matter where I went in the store, I felt him nearby. I tried to brush it off as coincidence. People cross paths in small stores all the time. But every aisle I turned into, he was there. Near the chips, near the cooler, near the candy. Always close enough to notice, never close enough to confront. He didn't pick up a single item. His hands stayed in his pockets, his pace slow, deliberate. I leaned down to Liam, whispering, "Stay next to me, okay? Don't wander." He frowned, slushy cup in hand. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing," I lied. Just humor me." At one point, I caught his reflection in the glass of the freezer door. He was standing only 2 aisles away, pretending to look at bottled juice. His head tilted slightly toward us. My chest tightened. Every nerve in my body screamed to get out. I pushed through checkout faster than I ever had. I grabbed water, sunscreen, Liam's snack, and motioned for him to follow. My smile at the cashier was tight, robotic. "Evening," I muttered. He rang us up, unfazed, as if nothing unusual was happening. Maybe nothing was. Maybe it was all in my head. But when we stepped outside, the sun blinding and heat pressing down, my stomach dropped. There he was, already outside. He crouched near my car, pretending to tie his shoelace. Except he wasn't really tying anything. His head turned ever so slightly, eyes flicking toward us. The casual act was too casual. My skin prickled. He'd been inside the whole time we were. There was no way he could have beaten us out unless he'd been waiting for us. My voice came out in a whisper. "Nope, we're not doing this." "Doing what?" Liam asked, confused. I yanked his hand, pulling him back toward the glass doors. "We're going back inside." The cashier looked startled when we rushed back in. I leaned over the counter, voice low and urgent. "That man outside, he followed us through the aisles. He's crouched by my car right now." The cashier's brow furrowed. "You sure?" "Yes, I'm sure." My voice cracked. "Please, can you call your manager?" He picked up the store phone without argument. Within a minute, a stocky man in a red polo appeared from the back, looking annoyed until he saw my face. I explained in a rush, words tumbling over each other. He nodded slowly. "Stay here," he said, gesturing toward the counter. "I'll check it out." Through the window, I watched him step outside, shoulders squared. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. Liam squeezed my hand, wide-eyed but silent. Minutes ticked by. The manager walked back in, shaking his head. "He's gone." "Gone?" I repeated. "Vanished. Nowhere in sight." My knees wobbled. I clutched the counter to steady myself. It was impossible. He had been right there by my car. Where could he have disappeared to in seconds? The manager's expression softened. "Look, we've got cameras. I'll check the footage, all right?" He led us to the small back office where the monitors flickered with grainy, black and white images of the aisles and parking lot. And there it was, the man trailing us through the store. Every aisle, every turn, always hovering, never buying. Then, clear as day, him crouching by my car, watching, waiting. I felt my stomach turn. Oh my God. The manager burned a copy onto a disc, his jaw set tight. "You need to take this to the police." By the time I walked into the Mesa Police Department later that afternoon, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely sign the paperwork. The officer at the front desk was calm, professional, but I could tell from her eyes she had heard this story before. "You did the right thing," she said, sliding the report form toward me. "A lot of people second-guess themselves." "I almost did," I admitted, my voice shaking. "But he wasn't shopping. He didn't buy anything. He was just watching." Liam sat beside me, legs swinging nervously. "Mom," he whispered. "Is he going to come to our house?" My throat tightened. "No, sweetheart, he's not." But the truth was, I didn't know. The officer glanced at the footage, nodding grimly. "We'll file this as suspicious activity. Patrol will keep an eye out for him." Unfortunately, without a plate or a positive ID, our hands are tied. But your instincts were good. Instincts. That word stayed with me. That night, after I finally got Liam to bed, I sat on the couch staring at nothing. Every sound outside made me jump. Headlights flashing on the wall made me feel like the sedan had found us. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I drove to Best Buy and bought a dash cam. It was the first thing I installed in my car. I also started parking only in well-lit, crowded lots. I wasn't taking chances anymore. Life eventually settled back into routine, but the fear never completely left. Every time I pulled into a convenience store, every time I noticed someone lingering too long in an aisle, the memory came back. My pulse would quicken, my grip on Liam's shoulder would tighten. He never got that slushy. It felt trivial after what happened. I promised him I'd make it up to him, and I did. Different store, different day. But I never again looked at 7-Eleven as just a convenience store. For me, it became the place where ordinary errands turned dangerous, where a stranger's quiet obsession almost became something much worse. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my gut, if I'd brushed it off as coincidence and walked to my car anyway. The thought still makes me shudder. Danger doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it lurks in quiet stares, in footsteps that echo too close, in the uneasy feeling you try to dismiss. Instinct is a gift, especially for parents. It's the alarm bell you can't afford to ignore. Trust it, even when it feels inconvenient. It's better to walk away looking paranoid than to walk into a situation you can't escape. When I think back to being 16, most memories feel like fragments of a life that belonged to someone else. The long walks home from school, the pop quizzes I thought would define my future, the nervous excitement of having a driver's license still so new that the plastic smelled fresh. But the clearest memory isn't about any of that. It's about rain. The kind of summer storm that swallowed the town of Brookdale in 2008, leaving me with a story I've never been able to tell without my throat tightening. I had been working at the local 7-Eleven since I was 13, starting with short weekend shifts where my biggest responsibility was mopping sticky floors and restocking candy. By 16, I had earned more hours, sometimes closing the store by myself. My parents liked the idea of me learning responsibility. "Think of it as practice for college," my dad said, slipping an extra $5 into my savings jar when he thought I wasn't looking. I didn't mind working. The store was only a few blocks from our house, and Brookdale was quiet, the kind of town where the scariest story people told involved teenagers throwing eggs at Halloween. That Tuesday, June 24th, had been miserable from the start. The clouds rolled in early, heavy and swollen, and by the time my shift started at 3, the sky opened up. The storm didn't let up for hours. Rain hammered the roof so hard it rattled the light fixtures. Each time the door swung open, a blast of damp air rushed in, bringing the smell of wet asphalt and gasoline. Customers trickled in soaked and cranky, grabbing coffee or lottery tickets, muttering about how bad the roads had gotten. By 6, my sneakers squished when I walked. The leak near the slushy machine hadn't been fixed, so I had to mop constantly. I told myself it was just another long shift, nothing unusual. I didn't know then how much that night would mark me. When my short meal break came, I dropped onto the stool in the back room with a sigh. My stomach growled. I reached into my bag for my wallet and froze. It wasn't there. I remembered immediately. I'd tossed my wallet into the cup holder of my car after school, too distracted to bring it inside. Normally, no big deal. My car was only a few yards from the store, parked in the tiny lot that served mostly regulars. But when I peered out the front windows, my stomach tightened. The rain had turned vicious. It sheeted across the lot so thick I could barely see the gas pumps. The neon, "Open 24 hours" sign blurred into a smear of pink and blue. I hesitated. No one else was around. The delivery guy had already left, and the next shift worker wasn't due until 10. It was just me and the storm. I muttered under my breath, "It's just 2 minutes. Just run." I grabbed the store keys, shoved them into my hoodie pocket, and pushed the door open. The rain slapped against my skin instantly, icy and heavy. My sneakers splashed through deepening puddles. I squinted through the downpour, fumbling with my car door. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was just a man waiting out the storm. An old guy, maybe in his 60s, hunched 2 cars down. He wore a gray coat so soaked it clung to his thin frame. His head was bent like he was digging through his own car. I almost felt sorry for him, drenched like that. "Sir?" I called nervously. "You okay out here?" The moment the words left my mouth, he jerked his head up. I'll never forget his eyes, wide, frantic like he'd been caught. And then he moved. He lunged toward me. There was no hesitation, no slow shuffle like an old man in the rain. His hand came out of his coat, and even through the storm I saw it, the unmistakable glint of a knife. My body reacted before my brain did. I yanked my door closed, the lock clicking just as he grabbed at the handle. The sound of his fist hitting the glass echoed louder than the thunder. I screamed, shoving my weight against the door as if it would make a difference. His face was inches from mine, rainwater streaming down, teeth bared. Panic surged. I bolted. Throwing the door open on the other side, I stumbled into the rain, nearly losing my footing. I sprinted back toward the store, slipping on the slick pavement. My lungs burned, the downpour drowning out my own cries. I slammed into the glass door, fumbling with the keys, finally yanking it open and shoving myself inside. My hands shook so violently I dropped the keys twice before locking the door behind me. My chest heaved as I grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? There's a man outside, I stammered, voice cracking. He has a knife. He tried to grab me. He's still out there. The dispatcher's voice was calm, steady, like an anchor. Stay inside, doors locked. Officers are on their way. Can you see him now? I peeked over the counter, heart hammering. The lot looked empty, blurred by sheets of rain. I didn't answer. Every minute felt like an hour. I crouched behind the counter, the phone pressed to my ear as the dispatcher kept me talking. You're doing great. Just stay where you are. Help is close. Finally, flashing red and blue lights cut through the storm. Relief flooded me so hard I almost cried. 2 officers ran across the lot, drenched within seconds. I unlocked the door with shaky hands, barely able to explain what had happened. They searched the parking lot, flashlights slicing through the rain. I hugged myself, soaked hair dripping down my back, watching from the doorway. My breath caught when one officer crouched by the pumps, but when they returned, their faces were grim. No sign of him, one said. Lots empty, no vehicles. That's not possible, I whispered. He was right there. All we found was this. The officer held up a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a soggy cigarette butt. Could be his, could be anyone's. And this was lying near your car? The second officer handed me my wallet, dripping wet. My knees buckled. I hadn't even realized I'd dropped it. They filed a report, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe me completely. Could have been a drifter, maybe a prank, one suggested. Storm makes people see things. But I knew what I saw. I knew the feel of his grip on my car door. I never worked a closing shift alone again after that night. My parents insisted on driving me to and from work for weeks, even when the skies were clear. The store manager didn't argue. He could see how badly I shook when the storm clouds gathered. Life went on. I finished high school, left Brookdale for college, built a life beyond that little store. But the memory stayed. Even now, years later, whenever it storms, and I find myself crossing a parking lot, my chest tightens. The patter of rain on pavement doesn't relax me. It sets my nerves on fire. I'll never know who that man was. Maybe he was passing through town. Maybe he'd been watching me for longer than I realized. The not knowing is what keeps me awake sometimes, wondering how close I came to vanishing into the dark that night. Some memories you outgrow. This one never left me. Safety is fragile, and danger doesn't always come from the shadows. It can appear in the most ordinary places, during the most ordinary routines. What saved me wasn't luck alone, but the decision to run, to trust the instinct that screamed louder than the storm. The lesson I carry is simple but unshakable. Never ignore the feeling that something is wrong. It may be the only thing standing between you and a memory that could have ended far worse. People always assume the scariest moments of your life happen in obvious places. Dark alleys, lonely highways, crime-ridden neighborhoods. For me, it happened in the most ordinary place imaginable. A tired, run-down 7-Eleven off Highway 64 in Hollow Creek, Tennessee. It was February of 2014, and I was 21, broke, and desperate for work. That combination doesn't leave you with a lot of choices. I had dropped out of college 2 months earlier. Tuition had swallowed me whole, and after maxing out 2 credit cards, I knew I couldn't keep pretending I'd figure it out later. My parents lived 2 states away, and the last thing I wanted was the shame of calling them to admit I'd failed. So when my cousin Daryl offered me a part-time night job at his store, I took it. I told myself it was temporary, just until I found something better. That store was sad, honestly. The neon sign out front buzzed like it was dying. Half the ceiling tiles were water-stained, and the soda fountain had a leak that made the floor perpetually sticky. The one thing I really hated, though, was the basement. It was used for bulk storage, crates of soda, boxes of chips, cleaning supplies. To get there, you had to unlock this heavy wooden door in the back, then walk down narrow, creaky stairs into a low-ceilinged space that smelled like rust and mildew. A single bulb dangled in the middle, swinging just enough to make shadows dance along the walls. "Don't let it freak you out," Daryl told me once, grinning when he saw the way I hesitated. "It's just a basement. Every store's got one." But it wasn't just a basement. Every time I went down there, I felt watched. The air was heavier somehow, like the concrete walls had absorbed too many secrets. Sometimes I'd hear faint noises, the kind you could explain away as pipes or settling wood, but deep down I didn't believe those explanations. I'd climb those stairs 2 at a time just to get out faster. Most nights were uneventful. Truckers, insomniacs, people grabbing coffee before long drives. I spent hours restocking shelves, scrolling on my phone and counting down minutes until I could leave. But the longer I worked, the more I realized how dangerous it felt being alone at night in a place where anyone could walk in. And then came the snowstorm. That night is burned into me, detail by detail, like a scar. The storm had started just after midnight, thick flakes hammering the glass front of the store. The wind howled through tiny cracks in the frame, making the whole building feel like it was shuddering. By 1:30, the parking lot was covered in a white sheet. Hardly anyone drove by on Highway 64, just the occasional pair of headlights glowing through the snow. I was standing behind the counter, half listening to an old country song on the radio, when I noticed the rack of chips was almost empty. Daryl always complained about losing sales when customers couldn't find their favorite brands. With a sigh, I grabbed the basement key. The moment I opened the basement door, the smell hit me, damp, metallic, like old pennies soaked in water. My skin prickled. I told myself I was being ridiculous. "Get the chips and get out," I muttered, switching on the flashlight we kept for when the bulb blew. The stairs creaked as I stepped down, my breath echoing too loudly in the narrow space. Halfway down, I stopped dead. A sound rose from below. A clank, metal against metal. Then footsteps, not random creaks. Deliberate, heavy steps, pacing. My heart slammed. "Daryl," I called, though I knew he was home, probably asleep. My voice cracked in the empty air. The steps stopped. Silence pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands shook as I fumbled the lock, pressing my forehead against the cool wood, whispering, it's fine, it's nothing." But when I turned toward the security monitors, I froze. On the grainy black and white feed from the basement camera, a man stood at the bottom of the steps. His head tilted back, staring straight at the camera. And he was smiling. I couldn't breathe. His face was pale, stretched into a grin that didn't reach his eyes. They were hollow, wide, locked on the lens like he knew I was watching. I whispered, "No. No, no, no." My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I dialed Daryl. He answered groggily, his voice thick with sleep. "Meg, what's going on?" "There's someone in the basement," I hissed, keeping my eyes glued to the monitor. "He's just standing there, smiling at the camera. Daryl, I'm not making this up." He was quiet for a second. "Lock the doors. Stay put. I'm on my way." The call ended, and I stared at the screen. The man didn't move. He just kept smiling, his shoulders slightly hunched like he was waiting for something. Then suddenly, the screen went black. Static filled the monitor. I nearly screamed. When the picture flickered back, the basement was empty. By the time Daryl arrived, I was curled behind the counter, clutching the phone like a lifeline. He searched the basement with a flashlight while I hovered at the top of the stairs, refusing to go down. "See? Nothing," he called, his voice echoing. He tried to sound confident, but even from up there, I heard the tension in it. Later, when he checked the system, he found the wires on the basement camera had been frayed, not cut clean, but pulled at, like someone had been working on them from inside. My stomach churned. Maybe it was just a glitch, Daryl said, though his eyes didn't meet mine. I didn't argue, but I knew better. The next week was worse. I kept telling myself it had been exhaustion, paranoia, maybe even a trick of the camera. But things started happening that I couldn't explain away. One night I came in for my shift and found the basement door unlocked. I was certain I had locked it the night before. Another time, the lights flickered so violently the bulbs shattered above the soda fountain, glass raining down across the counter. Then came the note. It was a scrap of notebook paper, left on the counter where I always set my phone. The handwriting was jagged, uneven, like it had been scrawled in a hurry. 4 words. Why are you afraid of me? I felt sick. My legs nearly gave out. I shoved the paper into my pocket and called Daryl immediately. He came down, checked the security footage, but there was nothing. No one had been caught on camera leaving that note. When I showed the sheriff, he shrugged. Probably kids messing around. Snow's got everyone cooped up. But an older clerk, a man who had worked there years earlier, pulled me aside one evening. His eyes were tired, heavy with something I couldn't name. "You're not the first," he said quietly. "Years ago, a drifter disappeared in that basement. Folks said he never left. I quit before I had to find out. I didn't want to believe him, but part of me already did. I quit within days. Daryl tried to convince me to stay, offered to switch my shifts so I'd never have to close again, but I couldn't. I couldn't walk into that store without feeling the weight of those hollow eyes on me. Packing up my locker, I found the note again, crumpled and damp. I nearly tore it up, but something stopped me. I shoved it into a shoebox where it still sits, proof of a night I'll never forget. It's been years since I worked at that 7-Eleven, but even now, every time I pass one, my chest tightens. I avoid basements whenever I can, and snowstorms. Snowstorms still make me glance over my shoulder, waiting for a shadow that doesn't belong. Some things you outgrow, others stay with you, carved into your nerves. For me, it was the smile that made me realize how thin the line is between routine and night. That fear isn't always irrational. Sometimes it's your body warning you that something is terribly wrong. I learned that ignoring instincts can put you in danger, and that speaking up, even when people dismiss you, is better than staying silent. The world may not always take young women seriously, but our fear is real, and sometimes it's the only thing that saves us.